Sorry.
Yes, we have made it to the final show of the year, the Shelter SportCast, coming to you from the BackChat Studios. Of course, that's the Southern River Band, the local boys out of Thornley doing some of their finest work. Mondays, Thursdays, through the course of summer, we've been rolling through some of the best moments, WA themes, socials at Shelter SportCast, FootyCast. We've got shelterbrewing.com.au, of course. The beer is magnificent. I drank a bit too much of it last night watching the World Cup. But Shelter, born and brewed in Busselton. Get down there over the Christmas break and have a look. Mark Redding's alongside Chris Coyne. And what shall we say except what a night for the World Game.
Yeah, wow. It was one of the best games of football I think I've seen in a long time. It had all the theatre, it had goals, it had everything. So even for a neutral, they could rock back and just go, what a game of football that was. So fitting end to what I think's been a really, really good World Cup. Park all the other shit that's going on off the field and all the issues they've had there. But I think in terms of the sports side of it, I thought it was very, very, very good.
Amazing finish, going down to penalties. We'll discuss that in depth. These are our big moments of the weekend. And I have to say, the good, the bad and the ugly, your sport has owned all of those three departments, including a really bad night in Melbourne at the Derby.
It's amazing how we always do it to ourselves. And everyone's riding the euphoria of the World Cup, the Socceroos doing so well. And then it takes a bunch of idiots to just go and throw it back in the dustbin. It's just, I'm not going to say they're fans. There's no way they're football fans, but the affiliation they've got with the game, they've got to come down on them really hard. And I don't know whether it's jail terms or whether it's lifetime bans, but we need to eradicate this from the sport because it's just not acceptable.
Yeah, I think 2 of the 9 who may have been involved in some shape or form have come forward to either hand themselves in or certainly the vision is clear enough that they have to come forward. So that'll have a very interesting sequel to find out what sort of bans. And in brief, Victory supporters obviously are going to be focused on it. Can the club be penalised in any shape or form?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've read a bit, obviously, because it's been massive news, especially in our world. But I've read a bit where they're looking at maybe sanctioning, no fans at games or whatever. But do they hit the club with points? So the clubs have then got to be more accountable for the actions of their fans. But the way that the ticketing's done over here in Australia, in the UK, you have to have your driver's license or a form of ID to get the ticket. Over here, you can just say, Coyne, do you want to come to the game with me? And you just buy 4 or 5 tickets. So until we put a process in place so that we know that every ticket holder is going to be identified, how can you hold the club accountable? Because that ticketing process doesn't specify who's going to be in the ground.
Speaking of tickets, if I'd bought tickets for day 3, day 4 or day 5 of the Gabba test,
mate.
I'd have done my day. Well, not done my day, but no action. Inside 2 days, I'm not sure how much you caught of it, Coyne, but that was an extraordinary test match under extraordinary circumstances with a pitch that was as green as those ferns over there.
Mate, it was scary. And usually the Gab is a good, honest test match. It's always got a bit on it early on, and then once you get yourself in, you've got a chance of making some runs. And I was looking at the scorecard yesterday, and it was like duck 2-2, 2-3, whatever. It's like no one wants... Listen, I'm a purist. I love my test cricket. But we can't start seeing games that are over in 2 days and there's 34 wickets and no runs. It's not good for the sport, and I think they really need to have a look. The curator, especially the Gabba, needs to have a look at himself.
Tell you what, the pace bowlers from both sides were outstanding, and South Africa, they'll take a bit of heart out of taking 4 poles in the second innings, but yeah, it's too short, and the curator will face some scrutiny off the back of that. They are the big moments from the weekend that was. Mark Reddings and Chris Coyne, of course, former Socceroo, assistant coach at the Glory and a World Cup aficionado. He's been outstanding since we've had him on the show. We'll work our way up the table, so to speak. And I had an interest in Croatia versus Morocco on the other night. And not a bad game of football between the two sides chasing third posse.
Yeah, I thought it was a good game. You could see the pressure valve had been released, couldn't you? They just played with that bit of freedom. So pretty pleased for Croatia. I think Modric and that group that they've had over the last 12 years, that was probably the icing on the cake after being so close all these years. But, new generation of Croatian footballers coming through. But the big thing for me is the Moroccans. Let's, watch this space. I thought they were a really exciting team, and hopefully, they can start building again, because they're a decent team throughout the 80s. So it'd be good to see them get back up there again.
Are they a young side, Morocco, that they took to Qatar?
Relatively young, yeah. They had a couple of experienced boys in there, but yeah, relatively young group. So I'll be interested to see how they build.
And what about Croatia, in a nutshell? Their last I guess last decade, World Cup-wise, they've been terrific. And they're punching well above in terms of up against these power nations.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's such a small population as well they've got there. So I know it's their national sport, but what the Croatians really done well is they set a youth system up that was to develop that Modric era, that 36-year-old, and that's where all those players have been brought up through. So it shows you that if you get your systems right, get your processes right, you can produce players.
11th World Cup in a row where the third place has been taken out by a European side. But as you said, Morocco, a team on the up. And have to say that that'll be a huge fillip for them for the sport in Morocco and what they can do going forward. So Croatia winning 2-1. A couple of nervy moments at the back end of that match for Croatia. I was watching that. I had them to win Croatia, and I was just getting a little bit there was in the last 10 seconds, there was a header just outside the penalty area, I think it was. It was, they got across the line, but it was...
They got there, but it was a great game. Good, exciting football, and they both teams went out and played with that freedom. So your money was safe in the end, but it was an interesting game. Yeah,
we've parked the third and fourth because, let's be honest, it was all about last night, and Argentina, France, and Buenos Aires. I'm not sure if you've seen the pictures out of Buenos Aires at the moment. It is just going off. As you can imagine, after what we witnessed last night, you said the best World Cup final you've seen. The two performances by the two superstars, Messi and his French counterpart Mbappe, are they in a new level when it comes to World Cup performances, those two guys?
I think so. I mean, Mbappe obviously becoming the first player to score a hat-trick since Jeff Hurst in 66. So, straight away he's created himself...
It's his birthday today.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I think he's 23.
23. I mean, and that's the scary thing, right? So he's already hitting those heights, and he's still got so much room for improvement as well. So I think we saw the end of one goat, and I think the beginning of the next last night.
Interesting you say that, because I was driving to work early this morning after watching the match, and it was mentioned that Mbappe could be paid, I'm not sure if it's a career-wise moving forward, but $1 billion. Now, that can't be right, surely.
Wouldn't be far off it.
Really?
Wouldn't be far off it. I reckon he's probably on at the moment, would it be on €250,000 a week? So by the time he gets to his retirement age, he'll have a decent super and set up, won't he?
Unbelievable.
It's scary. And then you've got to remember all the endorsements, and he's a saleable asset as well, isn't he? He presents well and all the rest of it. So who knows what the sky is for that guy. I don't think he's got any ceiling in terms of his football, but also his earning potential.
Hey, we all thought that Leo Messi was going to sail off into the sunset, which in a World Cup since years, but he's declared that he wants to continue playing for Argentina because they're the champions, and he's got some petrol in the tank. Is that just the aftermath of a victory, and wait till the reality of actually going out there and playing a Puparama match?
I think so. I mean, it's so easy to say things like that when you're caught up in all the euphoria, and he's just ticked one of the biggest boxes. That Maradona tag, that's the only thing he's never won, etc., etc. But watching him last night, there's no reason to say he can't play on, to be honest, because he was very good. But it was funny, we were sitting there watching the game last night, and I said, especially in the second half when France got back into it, that's what happens when you defend with 10 players, because Messi literally sparked the biggest Monte Cristo cigar you've ever seen, and he was just strolling about. But every time he got the ball, he just made that magic happen. So I suppose when he's given that luxury within that team, with the qualities that he brings, there's nothing to say that he can't go again and potentially, I don't know if he's got another 4 years in him, but maybe another... Copa Americas or Copa Libertadores or whatever they call it.
Third World Cup triumph for Argentina, their first since '86. But half-time, I think, give me your honest answer, they're 2-0 to the good. The penalty, they were all over France. France looked like they were completely cooked. Did you give them any chance of getting back into that match?
No, none whatsoever. I thought the way the Argentinians played in the first half, that was as good a performance as I've seen in a long, long time. And it could have been 3 or 4, but in football, it's funny. You'd rather be 1-0 up than 2-0 up. And it sounds stupid, but it's that false sense of security where you think, we've got a buffer there. But once the other team gets that goal, like we saw when Mbappe scored last night, all of a sudden that momentum just swung massively, didn't it? And it took him about 30, 40 minutes to arrest it back into extra time. So I thought they were dead. I thought it was game over, get some sleep, because we're over in Sydney, obviously. So I was thinking, you beauty, I might get a couple of hours here before we fly. But glad I didn't now. It was an unbelievable game.
And almost towards the end of regulation, you felt, well, they've got these 2 goals in the space of a minute. They looked more likely to go on and win it at that stage.
Yeah, and they looked like they had more gas in the tank as well. Like they were running the game out really, really hard. And It was so end to end, and it was so transitional. Once they started getting tired, it was one of them where we'll attack and you attack. And I mean, that save that Martinez made in the, what was that, 119th minute or whatever it was, one of the best saves in World Cup history. And then Argentina go up the other end after that save and almost score again. So it was pulsating stuff, and it was just a cracker. Goals, it had everything. It literally had everything.
And of course, the drama continued through extra time. And I guess when you get to the realisation, probably 3 or 4 minutes out, you thought from penalties, the sense of dread almost amongst fans, amongst everyone, because it's drama, but gee, there's always the agony and ecstasy, isn't there, Coyne?
Yeah, it's a weird one, because when my old man was playing in America, they had a thing where they dribbled from the halfway line, and it was like a one-on-one. They trialled.
A bit like hockey does a bit of that.
Similar. It's very similar. I suppose that's where they've probably got it from. So, and he said that was probably a fairer sort of way of doing it. But I mean, penalties are penalties. I don't like them. I'd rather the game settled in normal time, because penalties is a lottery. It's 50-50. And at the end of the day, I think the goal he made, I just think he filled his goal. He's just a bigger presence.
He looks 6'5",
6'5", 6'6". Yeah, he's a big unit.
Imposing bloke. And you just felt sorry for it. Look, the pressure's on the kicker, really,
isn't it? 100% it is. And I mean, I was shit at penalties. I took 2 and missed 2. So I used to get sent to the back of the queue. But it's just weird. Some people are either really comfortable taking them. I just don't know what it was with me. I just didn't like taking penalties, and I never got nervous, but I just didn't like, some people are good at doing them and some aren't. And I thought the Argentinians, the way they went about it last night, Messi's again with that cigar, I think he had it down his sock and he just rolled it into the corner. It's like, dude, you got 1.5 billion people watching you, and you just got the audacity to walk up and just roll it in. It was like, fair play to you.
Absolutely. So if we don't settle in penalties, which we know that'll continue, let's keep playing extra time. Is that
they had that golden goal that they brought in. So if you scored within that period, then that was the winner. And I think it was 2 5-minuters, or you kept changing every 5 minutes. I actually prefer that. Yeah, I think so. I think a goal in normal time. But the problem is, it's how long's a piece of string. And then players, and you're talking about player welfare and injuries, and they've got to go back to their club. So I think penalties is a fair way of doing it. It's just not, it's not my preference.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, I mean, as you say, France lose no admirers, given they had 2 or 3 of their best players,
superstars,
out the back door, unable to play.
Yeah, they had some superstars missing. So French football, with that generation, and we're talking about Mbappe, but the rest of the squad's about that average age as well. So they'll be, powerhouses in world football for the next few years, very, very easily.
Yeah, it's and obviously the audience was huge last night, and the drama. Look, as we've touched on, there's some poor headlines in Australia, but that is the best advertisement you're going to get for the sport last night.
Mate, it's massive. And that's why, I don't know if there's more viewers than the Olympics, but that's why it's the world game. There was just so much excitement there. I mean, I love all sports, but there's just something about that theatre and that drama that goes on with football. And we were spoilt last night with so many goals, but it can just be those little individual moments. And like I said, we just saw 2 of the best on the pitch going toe to toe, and it was great way for that World Cup to finish.
Yeah, extraordinary penalties, and it was the World Cup final that we were waiting for, because Qatar had been through so much. I guess there was a lot of criticism about even going there, but the quality of football over the rounds was terrific. I thought I read someone they might change that up for the next World Cup in terms of how they go through the group stages. I'm not sure if that's something you've come across in the last week or two.
Was that increasing the number of teams?
I think so.
To 64, I think I might have read. Yeah. So, I mean, that's all fine and well, but you got to remember, if we're having the World Cup at certain periods, they've still got club football. So the top players in the world, because they'll be in the Champions League, they'll be competing for the Premiership or La Liga or wherever they're playing their trade. They're playing upwards of 60, 70 games a year with all the travel and all the rest of it. So I just don't know, by increasing the amount of group games and teams in there, they still need a rest. And if they're going into camp for 4 weeks, then they're going to the World Cup for 5 weeks, they're straight back into the Premier League or into the season that they're in. And at the end of the day, that's the one that pays their mortgage. They probably don't have one, some of them, but
exactly.
Not when they're on $250 a week. But that's their bread and butter. They've got to. So I'm all for it, because I think this tournament was a fantastic advertisement for the game. But I think they've also got to be mindful that the clubs, they've got to go back to their clubs and be able to represent them fully as well.
You got the Glory cap on and the T-shirt, obviously having just arrived back from Sydney. Best we touch on the boys yesterday. Didn't get a result, 1-0. MacArthur, I think they scored the 68th or 70th minute.
About 70
minutes. Did you create enough chances?
Robbed.
Turn it up.
Mate, we should have been 3 or 4 up
really?
at halftime. We absolutely demolished them, and clear-cut chances as well. So, you can't level the blame on the attackers. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But we've got to score them. And then all of a sudden you go on at half-time at 3-0 and the whole dynamic of the game changes. And in the second half, it got a bit tense. They got on top for 5-10 minutes. Dwight York changed it up a little bit. But it was always going to be that odd goal after we didn't take our chances. And unfortunately for us, it was a set piece, second phase, ball comes in and one of the young boys, he's still learning his trade. He's only 19, just lost his man for that split second, and it's good night Vienna. But even Dwight York afterwards said the best team didn't win today. So it doesn't make it any more digestible, but we know we're close. We know that, without putting too much pressure on Tag's shoulder, if he's in that 6-yard box yesterday, we know the ball's in the back of the net because Tags, that is what he brings to the table. So that's no disrespect to the boys that done really, really well yesterday, but it's the difference. Those fine margins, those lines are the difference between coming home with 3 points or our tail between our legs.
Yeah, so defensively you're pretty comfortable with the team's
sound.
at?
Yeah, and we played some great stuff yesterday, some of the best football we've played. So the result was disappointing, but the process and the way we're going about it is good. And if we can strengthen come January, then, we're in a pretty good place. And
that's when Tags will arrive and give you some extra meat and potatoes in attack inside that forward third, which is essentially, if you can create, have that class to finish off, it becomes all the much better. That is World Cup A-League. Chris Coyne, Mark Reddings on the Shelter SportCast. Now, speaking of not scoring much, Coyne, as your side did yesterday, what about the Thunder in the Big Bash, out for 15? I don't think we've touched on this scoreline, but you like me went, what's this 15? That's sundries? No, that was their innings, 15, lowest ever.
Could not believe it. I thought because a few of the boys know I like my cricket, and they've gone, no, 15. I went, piss off. Could not believe it. So straight away, I was straight on the Cricket Live scores, and it was like duck, 2, duck, 5, whatever. And it was it 6 balls or whatever you say was the max? It's like, come on, guys. That they must have had something on. It was someone's wedding, or they must have had a function on. It was just roll in and roll out. Yeah,
it was extraordinary,
unheard of.
No, exactly. And let's be honest, the batters have struggled in a few of the matches. Even at Optus Stadium on Saturday, the Scorchers off to a flying start. Terrific effort against the Sydney Sixers, but they were 4 for 49, made 155, and then our fast bowling sort of group of Richardson and Berendorf and Kelly came to the party, and we got across the line.
It's a great attack, isn't it?
It's good.
Great attack. And you've got that change up with Berendorf who can take the pace off it. And Jai Richardson, when he's hitting the deck hard, he can cause all sorts. So, no, it's a good start for the Scorchers. Obviously, they lost a few on the lead up. So it's always good when they do well. It's a good atmosphere down at Optus when they're playing.
We talked about the length of the test match at the Gabba. What about the length of the career of David Warner? I think he's averaging about 17 during this summer. A couple of hundred runs next to his name, but clearly a double failure in Brisbane. Does he get the luxury of seeing out Test 2 and 3? I think he probably will.
I think so. I think just because he's earned it. I think over that long period of time, he's more than likely, David Warner, whenever he's been in these ruts before, just goes out. Do you remember the innings he played at the WACA? I think it might have been India. And he just came out. I think he made a double ton that day, and he just blazed. I think he made almost 100 in a session. So he comes out fighting. Unfortunately, when you've got bowlers throwing a cherry down at you at 145, 150, I've just started wearing me specs now at 43, it catches up with you. So whether it's the eyes going or the reflexes, who knows? But
when you're facing fast bowling, though, that's... I mean,
what are they talking? 0.2 of a second, 0.3?
Yeah, the South Africans are elite in that department, as are the Australians. So, yeah, look, I think Ricky Ponting says he deserves to go out when he wants to go out. But by the same token, there's an Ashes series coming up over in England. And, of course, he hasn't really performed over there, particularly against Stuart Broad. So, fascinating to see whether Davey keeps his spot in the team.
I'd like to see him see the summer out, though. I think he's earned the right to play the next two, and then it's up to him then. If he makes runs, he's maybe on that plane across to the Ashes. But we've also got a lot of young talent coming through as well. So sometimes someone's misfortune is another one's opportunity. So we're spoilt in Australia that we've got this young talent pool coming through. So it might be an opportunity for someone else. Yeah,
Boxing Day test not far away. So it's a great tradition, isn't it? Getting up after Chrissy. It's an early start over here. I think 7 o'clock, 7:30. The first ball is bowled.
Yeah, it's great.
And at least we've got two teams. South Africa showed enough to me. Their batting's still a bit tender.
Bit sus, yeah. But with the ball, I thought they were good. And they looked sharp, they looked aggressive. So typical South African bowling attack. But yeah, Boxing Day, it doesn't matter who they're playing, does it? You've got all that leg ham left over and it's straight in the frying pan.
And away you go.
Away you go.
Mitch Starc, got to say, well done, 300 test wickets. And you go back 6-12 months and the late, great Shane Warne, he was potting him pretty regularly. This bloke who gave up his chance to go to the IPL, obviously big money there, to concentrate on playing the long-form cricket. Everyone who knows him says he's a ripping bloke, and obviously the numbers say that he's one of our best ever with a fast bowling department.
I just think, do you know what? When you see him coming in all 6'5", 6'6", and he's so fluid as well in his action, and when he's got that, I remember the New Zealand game at Optus, pink ball test, and he comes steaming in that day, and the thing was doing all sorts. It was exciting. He's got that. Yeah, he goes for runs and he can be loose, but if he's throwing them down and trying to do all sorts with the ball, I'd rather that. That's the beauty of Test cricket. You've got the luxury of losing 20 or 30, but if you take two for in the same process, then that's the beauty of Test cricket. You've got that bit of wiggle room where you can give a few runs away. But I think he's exciting, and you don't end up with them numbers unless you're good at what you do. And the longevity he's had as well as a fast bowler. So that's the other thing. His body's looked after his body well.
Who is your fast bowling? If you love your cricket, who was the bloke you sort of thought, geez, he's
growing up?
Yeah,
Curtly
Curtly
Ambrose. I watched him at the Wacker once.
Not the time he took 7 for 1, a spell of 7 for 1.
No, I forget. I can't remember what the score was, but mate, watching him, and then the wicket keeper was stood about 5-6 metres outside the 30, and I'm just sitting there going, wow. Love Merv Hughes as well. Merv was like growing up in that sort of 80s and 90s, but Craig McDermott, but Curtly Ambrose, once I saw him live, I was just like, wow, this guy's unbelievable.
He's a genius, wasn't he? And quite a funny man, apparently. Plays a bit of music. And the memory of Big Curtly is the late, great Dean Jones asking if he can remove his sweatbands in a one-day international at the SCG. And Curtly was none too impressed. I think knocked him over about 2 balls later. This is the Shelter SportCast. Mark Reddings alongside Chris Coyne. Right, Coyne, as we wind down towards a full stop for the year, I'm going to just throw one at you here. Have a think. The Shelter XPA X Factor. We're trying to look for the best WA sports man or woman for 2022. WA. That's.
I don't know. I mean, female, would we sort of look at Minjee Lee for what she achieved?
Good shout. Really good shout.
So, internationally, she's been there or thereabouts. So, I think she's had a cracking year.
I mean, Sam Kerr is Sam Kerr.
Sam Kerr's been doing it for years, so she's had another great year. And I think, did she finish in the top 5 of the
I think
Ballon
so
d'Or?
again.
So she's world class. But I think Minjee Lee, there's something about those individual sports, the discipline and how tough it is for them. You look at the top tennis players; they are elite. Because there's no one to help you pack your bags. It's like it's you against.
Well, you mentioned tennis. I mean, Matty Ebden winning a Grand Slam doubles.
Yeah,
he's done himself
very
proud.
well. Yeah. So
are we missing anyone that we should be throwing into the mix from best male or female sports person for 2022?
I think Cam Green had a good start, didn't he?
Yeah. So
and then he sort of dropped off a little bit, but I think Minjee Lee's probably been the most successful off the top of my head. You put me on the spot there.
I know. Well, I was only I read the broader cue there. And geez, we got to start thinking about that. But yeah, it's been footy wise, nothing to shout home about. Pretty average, let's be honest. And no one's. Andy Brayshaw had a really good
year.
Good year. I think finished high up in the Brownlow. West Coast struggle street for them. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think the women. I think you're going to say the women were dominant. Minjee Lee outstanding. Well, Richie Smith, I don't know if you're the coach of Minjee, Hannah Green. He's doing really good work with those young golfers. So well done to Minjee and Sam Kerr, of course, who's flying the flag over there on the other side of the country. Now, Coyne, over the next few weeks, you're going to down tools, relax, or work? Is it back to glory,
work.
Full on?
Back day off tomorrow, back in Wednesday, game Friday. Luckily, the way it falls this year, we managed to get Christmas Day off and Boxing Day, which would be great. So I'll definitely be watching the cricket Boxing Day. But then from there, we go Adelaide away on the 2nd, back here to Perth. We play 2nd, 6th, 10th, 14th and 21st.
So how many home games? You obviously started away with quite a few.
4 out of the next 5 or 5 out of the next 6, I think it is. So we start with Wellington at home on Friday night, which will be a cracker. They're for me, I think, the best team in the A-League.
Okay.
So they haven't got the same star power that Melbourne City have got on paper. But Ufi Tale at Wellington, they are a top-notch team.
Off the back of that, I believe you've got, there's a request, I've just got a text through that your son wants to go and do some netting this afternoon.
Yeah, he's off his head. I've just got off a 4-hour flight and he's like, Dad, can we go down the nets? I said, dude, it's 35 degrees. I've got every intent. I only had 3 hours sleep last night as well on the plane after watching the footy. I'm definitely getting a little cheeky nana nap on the couch.
Absolutely. Last night we had Simon Beaumont's 60th and we sang, we drank, we watched football. It was a great
Sounds like a great night.
Sunday night. Only problem is Monday morning came around
Comes around too quick, doesn't it?
Too quickly. By the way, the Shelter FootyCast / Shelter SportCast will be back in early January. I think Scully's going away about 3 weddings in the next 3 weeks around the country, so he's going to be doing his best work down south and elsewhere. Keep an eye on our social media for when we will be returning. We're not quite sure, Dan, but sometime mid-January, once we get rolling with a bit of footy and cricket sort of...
Yep, we got some big bash, and we'll bring Coyne back when the A-League finals starts to come around.
Yeah,
because
you'll both be playing. You'll be able to sit back and watch, won't you?
I hope not. I hope not. Otherwise, I'll be down at Centrelink.
little drive-by for poor old Coyne. The Glory boys, we want to see them up and running. Just quickly, you've got a match this Friday, I believe. Is it Wellington?
Wellington, yeah.
Is there still a plan amongst supporters to do the walkout?
Allegedly. I hope it's a peaceful walkout so we don't see the fiasco we saw the other day. Listen, I'm all for it. We said the other week, that the fans have got every right to do what they want, but they haven't got the right to storm the pitch and behave the way they did the other day. That's just deplorable. It's a disgrace. Yeah,
well, Coyne, as you know, the World Game has taken over this studio over the last month, and you've been a key component to that. So thank you so much, my friend, for being... giving us the knowledge, the expertise, bit of humour.
And the tip, picked Argentina.
You did tip Argentina as well. In fact, guess what? 2-1, we were beaten by Argentina. We probably came as close to anyone. Australia.
The only team that beat us, France and Argentina.
Exactly.
So that's our claim to fame now.
Exactly. But, mate, your crystal balling was terrific. You did everything you had to do. So we're looking forward to seeing you and hearing you in the new year. Thanks to Dan for the great work in 2022. Of course, to Scully for running the whole conglomeration down here, and he had the big story with Justin Langer. He got a bit of heat over that, but he put the helmet on. He's back out there and doing his best work, and we will be back next year. You can email us at footycast@shelterbrewing.com.au, at shelterfootycast on Instagram as well. Dan the Man's all across the socials. Have a great, safe, and Merry Christmas. We'll catch you in 2022. Coyne, well played.
Good one, brother.